2CP and King of the Hill are my least favorite game modes in Overwatch. In fact, I would go as far as to say that I absolutely hate them, and for the longest time I just thought that this was due to time investment. Even if not every single King of the Hill match necessarily took more time out of my day on the clock, playing 5 rounds just felt daunting to me, and 2CP obviously has a similar problem, in that I often ran into scenarios of either not being able to cap the second point or each team just kinda steamrolls each other over and over again on attack. This perception of a game taking a long time can sometimes be even worse than a match that on the clock takes longer. Because it's not like it takes long due to both teams being of equal skill. More often than not, the map design is to blame, or the enemies pulled off something cheesy to abuse said map design. But recently I've come to realize that there's more to it, that it's not just the time investment nor the perception of time wasted that makes me hate those game modes. And it's not even just that I think these game modes are poorly balanced or that the maps are poorly designed. There's an underlying issue with these game modes for me personally that I want to talk about today. But before we get on the hate train, and trust me, that's all this is about. I'm obviously not a map designer. I'm not here to propose obvious solutions that players think are easily integrated. But again, before we get into why I dislike 2CP and King of the Hill, let's talk about what hybrid and payload maps do right in my opinion. What makes me like them more than the others? Well, to start things off, the map becomes more relevant to a bigger extent. It's not just 2 points that are connected through a pathway. The entire map matters if you're trying to escort a payload through it. On ladder, it offers a variety of strategies that you can apply with relative ease. It allows for more creativity in your hero choices, and the way you play your heroes is also the way you use your ultimates. So it's not only that I get to see more of these maps, but that the things that I do see matter. Everything I see can be used to strategize with, and that I really like. Now, one could make the argument that a lot of the payload maps in parts feel very snowbally, that some players would rather just play on the remaining parts of the map that are not so easily steamrolled through. But reality is that I have been fighting to push and fighting to avoid it being pushed on pretty much every single part of the map on every map. That means that as much as it feels like the hangar on Gibraltar is impossible to defend in most of your games since players just roll through it, that's not due to how the map was designed, it's due to how you played it. Point of critique is obviously the second defender spawn after you lost the first checkpoint, and that again on the second point. That if you die at the wrong time, you get a bad spawn that pretty much guarantees death again. And that I used to think for a long time as well. It wasn't until I coordinated more with my teams that I managed to avoid that for the most part. It's about assessing the situation and deciding whether re-engaging is worth it or not. Because the problem is that players don't do exactly that. They just run their face into the objective trying to stop it without thinking any further. But if you do coordinate with your team more and talk about how you want to approach team fights, calling to disengage early enough or making the call for a last-ditch effort, then you can avoid split spawns like that quite easily. There are even ways to punish enemies that try to take advantage of one of your teammates getting a bad spawn. What I'm trying to say here is that there's a lot of variance, and that's good. Yeah, sometimes you are unfortunate and get a bad spawn that instantly gets you killed again. Other times you die together with a couple of teammates and you punish someone trying to pick you off on a bad spawn. There is variance in how you play these scenarios out. There are options, and options in my opinion are always a good thing. Options that quite frankly are not really available on 2CP or King of the Hill. I have come to realize that the one thing that makes me hate these two game modes is that they are not real objective focused game modes. There is no point to the objectives on these maps. They are merely excuses for skirmishes, and that's what they often feel like. They're just team fight after team fight after team fight. These game modes often limit your hero choices to those that have the most killing potential, because that's your goal. That's all you're trying to do, killing the enemies as fast as possible. And you could argue that you do that in every game mode, but again, we're talking about variants of that goal. Your goal is not just to kill everyone on Gibraltar, you're trying to get the payload as far as possible. A moving objective that forcefully alters your position and your strategies. A Dragon Strike that doesn't kill anything on Lijiang Tower 9 out of 10 times is a wasted ultimate. A Dragon Strike on King's Row that doesn't kill anything can zone the payload and give you an extra couple of meters that can really matter. Rather than smashing your face into your keyboard over all the stall tactics on Volskaya, you're trying to play the map on Iconwall, trying to play spawn advantages and disadvantages in just the right way. Ulting just 1 or 2 people as Reinhardt is not pointless on hybrid maps, because putting people on a different spawn counter is very valuable. By only getting 1 on second point Hanamura, might as well not have used it until you can decimate the entirety of the enemy team at once, because they will simply come back and stagger it, stalling over and over again until you get into overtime, and that's really annoying. Now, I I'm not inherently against the idea of skirmishes. I've played enough shooters in my life to find enjoyment in team deathmatch type game modes. I like the cohesion with your team, the idea that you can synergize with everyone else and come up with some cool strategies. In other games, I pick up a gun and that gun will be about as effective as every other gun that is being held to my face. It is me and only me that makes this game mode a success, and that I can really dig. But in Overwatch, just one player deciding not to work together with her team makes these skirmishes infinitely more difficult. I can't just decide to play a DPS either if my guys are not killing anything, because more often than not they will not admit to playing poorly, meaning they won't swap off to a support to help their team. The fact that killing is the main focus in those game modes really bugs me in this regard, especially as a support main. I can't just swap off in an attempt to do their job better, because then we lack healing that is also vital to our success. Every gun is not created equal in Overwatch, and that's what really sucks about killing focused game modes. So how would I summarize my opinion of 2CP and King of the Hill? King of the Hill and its multiple rounds kind of nature feels like it takes way longer than it really does. It's daunting and annoying. Most maps also seem to be designed in a way that favors a very small portion of the whole hero pool while putting others at a severe disadvantage. While I think it's fine to have some maps where certain heroes shine, making others feel outright useless just does not feel that great. And ultimately, the lack of variance in how you approach King of the Hill really bores me. The fact that the whole point is just killing everyone within the vicinity of a small capture point causes me to not enjoy this game mode. 2CP maps on the other hand really suffer from map design that I would call unfun. There are only two areas that really matter that are connected by a pathway. This pathway in most games does not really matter a whole lot other than trying to not get snapped on your way back to the area that actually matters. The goal in these maps is just as boring as King of the Hill. Kill everyone on the capture point. The difference being that stall tactics are much more annoying to deal with than on King of the Hill. Where on Oasis the enemies at least have a good way to run back to get to the objective, on Volskaya they just keep coming back with the sole purpose of stalling long enough to hit overtime. It's very difficult to get creative on those maps as every entrance to what they call the objective is very easily watched over. There are only so many ways that you can approach killing everyone on the fucking point, and in its killing demanding nature, having your DPS not pull their weight quite as well becomes even more apparent than on other maps. I understand that in pro play, showing that your team is good at a variety of things is important. Teams usually have game modes they favor because they really shine on them, but at the end of the day, if you can't perform in every single game mode, that simply means that you're not enough of a versatile team, and that ultimately makes you weaker than the competition. But on ladder, these game modes are often decided by RNGs. The team with the better DPS players usually wins, and that's something that you cannot affect at the time of queuing up. Not to mention that the game does not challenge ladder players in the same way it challenges pro players. We too might feel particularly confident on a certain game mode, but by sheer luck or the lack thereof, we might spend an entire session playing nothing but maps that we absolutely despise, and that from a player perspective is not very fun. And lastly, the fact that there's no way to set up a preference for which maps you'd rather participate in on quick play is an absolute joke. Ranked should, in my opinion, be set up in a way that you get to play a variety of game modes to test your skills under different circumstances. Even if at the cost of longer queue times, it's about competition and skill. But quick play is literally just about having fun in a casual environment. You shouldn't take the choice out of the players' hands because ultimately they fucking paid for the game and they should be able to enjoy it in whatever way they please. If some game modes end up being underpopulated, then I think that is only a testament to you having done a poor job as a developer. But personally, I do not believe that this would ever happen. As much as people voice their dislike for certain game modes, there are also a lot of players who just quietly enjoy or don't mind them. So to end this video off, I would say that players should be left a choice. Give us the option to set up preferences for quick play, and ranked should be tuned in a way to have players experience a variety of game modes on a regular basis. Yes, I hate 2CP and King of the Hill, but if I want to call myself a skilled player, I will not get around them. What isn't fun, however, is forcing players into the same game modes over and over again, and that I think should definitely be fixed. But this is me done for the day, so I spout my opinion into a microphone just to have people get angry at me for doing so. If you enjoyed the video, then by all means do let me know by dropping me a like on your way out. Subscribe if you want to see more opinionated bullshit, and I hope to see you all next time. Don't bother, body blocking my turret. It's all good. I don't think she gets ult shot for doing that. She does lose HP though, so like... You were doomed to lose that battle. What did you try to do there, girl?